When you know your why, then it becomes very easy to diagnose and define when it's time for a pivot. Over the course of your career, you may find yourself in a position where you feel like it's time to make a career pivot. Now, how do you know when it's time to make a pivot? Everybody needs a why for the role or the career that they have chosen. Are there skills that you wanted to get from that particular career journey? Are there skills or experiences that you wanted to get from a particular seat? Why did you choose that career? Was it for the money? Was it because you loved what the deliverables would look like every day? Did you like the pursuit of the different levels within that career? But why did you choose that particular career? When you know your why, then it becomes very easy to diagnose and define when it's time for a pivot. When you no longer feel like you're learning in that particular role, where the people that you're working with no longer inspire you, you're not learning a lot from those people, and it's really hard for you to interact with those people on a daily basis. And it has nothing to do with them personally, but everything to do with what you are involved with and your interaction with them. When you feel like you're not excited about it anymore, or that you are completely tapped out in your learning, those should be the early warning signs that it might be time for a career pivot. Now, a pivot doesn't mean that you have to entirely abandon all the skills and experiences that you've acquired in that particular career vertical. But it means that you might stay in that industry. You might even stay within that vertical, but you might choose to do something else within that vertical. I had my first career pivot 4 years into my career. I started right out of business school in mergers and acquisitions, but within 4 years, I found myself in capital markets. And almost 20 years later, I decided it was time to do something different. And then I found myself in investment management. 3 amazing verticals, all within financial services. But the criteria or the reason that you should think about a pivot is, again, when you feel like you have fully prosecuted that area, or if that area or that opportunity goes away. Now, how do you think about what you might turn to? One of the things you want to consider when thinking about a pivot as opposed to a change, what are the skills and experiences that you have already acquired? What's the next thing that might allow you to leverage what you have already learned? And let me give you an easy example. The 4 years that I spent in mergers and acquisitions, the focus of that particular product within financial services is all around shareholder value. A company decides to acquire another company because they believe ultimately it will give them greater shareholder value to do so. A company decides to divest of one of their companies or divisions. Why? Because they believe it will free up capital, people, opportunity for them to ultimately create greater shareholder value. My next move was in equity capital markets. That was all about shareholder value. A company decides to approach the public market in an IPO because they believe they need access to the public capital markets that will, in effect, allow them to create shareholder value, having access to that capital over time as they pursue their growth strategies. Companies decide to sell common equity if they're already public because that capital invested will allow them to create greater shareholder value. So again, the focus on those 2 areas around shareholder value, 2 very different areas within an investment bank, but it allowed me to leverage my understanding as I went into another area. So that's how you want to think about pivots. If you are advising early stage companies, you're helping them to create greater value. You're helping the management think about how to build the right team around them. You're helping them think about how to invest capital in a way that's going to create a greater return. Well, over time, you learn a lot about the early stage space. You learn a lot about early stage management teams. You learn a lot about leveraging business plans and scale. Well, you might decide after a few years of that, you actually now want to become an investor because you've learned how to pick them, You've learned how to grow them. You've learned how to identify management teams and opportunities that could scale. That is a pivot. So career pivots happen all the time, especially the longer you're in a particular vertical. But hopefully this will give you a sense of when you need to think about a pivot and when you need to execute. Go get them.